This video is sponsored by Newport Propane. If you'd like to learn more about Newport Propane, you can visit us at our website or at our Facebook page linked in the description below. Hey everybody, Alex Gomes here to do my first race recap of the year. I've had a late start to my season, which is why you haven't seen one of these videos yet. As you can see, I'm actually sitting in my car in my brand new trailer that I have for the season, which has made my life very easy at the track this season. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about my trip out to Oakland Valley Raceway Park in New York. Now, why did I make the trip 5 hours all the way out to Oakland Valley Raceway Park, New York? Well, it's a bit of a story. Up in Caney, New Hampshire, we have a track that we race at pretty often, and I was supposed to go there for one of my first races of the season this year, and Mother Nature said otherwise. There was a massive flood at the track, and it was devastating enough to where the water from the river that flooded it actually got into the ground under the track and ripped up the track. There's a good 100 feet of track of asphalt that was just undermined and taken up by water. I've never seen anything like that, but I learned pretty quickly that it could happen. But what was cool is that the owners out at Oakland Valley Raceway Park found out about this disaster, and they reached out to us at the New Hampshire Karting Association, and they were like, we're having a race in a couple weeks. Do you guys want to just come out and race with us? And so for me, I actually have driven at that track before in vintage racing, and I thought, yeah, it'd be cool to go out there and actually try to do it in some modern stuff. So there weren't many of us. It was probably like 4 or 5 of us that went out, but we went out there and we had ourselves a great time. And their race format was special that weekend. Instead of having like a pre-final final like most karting weekends do, it was just 2 finals. So there was potentially 2 trophies to grab for the afternoon. One cool thing was that they don't have any 4-stroke classes out there. I race a Briggs & Stratton World Formula, which is one of these guys here. Because they don't have any classes out there, I was concerned, like, oh, if we add a class to your weekend, is that going to screw up your timing or anything? Are you going to allow that? And yeah, they had no problem with it, so it was great. So as far as that class went, it was myself, and then it was Rodrigo that came out with World Formulas. And then, because nobody else races them out there, nobody else really raced with us, except for the track owner, Tim. He had an old kart that his dad used to race with a World Formula strapped to it. And he's like, you know what, it's great you guys came out. You're inspiring me to get my dad's kart going. I'll try to get it going before tomorrow, and I'll be out there racing with you. And he did. He came out, and he did both sessions with us, and it was really cool. So Oakland Valley Raceway Park is a bit of a diverse track. You have one very long straight that makes for a high-speed section, and then the other half of the track is very tight, very complex, and very technical, which is fun to try to figure out, especially for gearing with these World Formula karts. So it took a couple practice sessions of me and Rodrigo going out there to figure out the gearing, and we went out with different gearings both times. And it was funny because I would be able to catch him, and then we would swap positions on purpose and try to practice that way, and then he would have no problem reeling me in. And even though we had different gear ratios, it seemed like we couldn't get away from each other. But going into qualifying, I decided on a much shorter gearing to kind of aim towards acceleration, just so I could be fast through all the technical and tight stuff, and then I would kind of sacrifice any of the high-speed stuff in that long straightaway. And I figured since most of the track is tight, it's not going to be that much of a big deal. And going to qualifying, that was very much the truth. So out of the 3 of us that were racing in that class, I was able to actually take first place for qualifying, which means I'm going to start up front for the first final, which is great. Already in a great position to take that trophy. And when we got out there for the first race, we were racing with the air-cooled 2-strokes as well. It was a multi-class race, so they started ahead of us. We started behind them. It's 2 different races, though. We don't have to race those guys. They're not racing us. We get off, and I started taking away, and I noticed that Tim wasn't in the race after a couple of laps. I look back, which is something you shouldn't do, but I do. I gotta work on it. And, I could see him out of the corner of my eye for the first 2 laps, and then all of a sudden he was gone. I was like, what happened? And Rodrigo was back in 3rd place, and basically the whole race, I just ran my race, and Rodrigo stayed behind me, and that's how we finished. There really wasn't much to the race. And I asked Tim what happened. Oh, threw a chain being thrown. It's not terribly surprising, happens to everybody. But that means going into the second race, I would also be starting first. So when we got out there for the second race, it was more of the same, to be honest with you. We get out there, and Tim challenged me initially, going around the first corner, staying on my outside. And I was like, oh man, here we go, we're going to have a race now. And going into the second corner, I was able to cover him up, and he stayed behind me. And for the first 5 laps or so, I was just distancing myself from Tim every lap. But again, after like 5 laps, he wasn't in my vision anymore, and I was like, oh no, did he break down again? And sure enough, he did. And I didn't get a clear story as to why he broke down the second time, but it sucks. I was looking forward to racing him, but I'll have to come back someday, and challenge him again. And then as far as Rodrigo it was more the same yet again. He just stayed a distance behind me, having qualified third. I just slowly gapped myself from him, and I kind of just ran alone for the whole race and ended up winning the second race too. So as far as on-track action goes, that's really it. There wasn't too much, even though we got a shot at 2 races. But I do have to say the overall experience was just so cool. It really was. The track is a family-owned track, and guys like Tim and Greg and Joe and all those guys out there, and was it Sharon or Shannon? I get those two screwed up all the time. Women working in the shop there, and who also made the trophies. Just everybody up there was just really cool. A really great group of people, and I can see that all the people who race there as well. It's a really great community out there at Oakland Valley, and it's cool to see that. So that's all I really have to say about my trip to Oakland Valley Raceway Park. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.